Welcome back to All Things Probing, where in this video we will be demonstrating how to set a work offset using the Renishaw Inspection Plus diameter inside and outside 4-point probing cycles for any bore or boss type features. This will be a multi-video training tutorial series covering all things probing. We'll go through both the basic and advanced features of CIMCO probing in Mastercam and the probe operation of your machine. So make sure to follow along, like, and subscribe as we dive in. To begin, we can open up Mastercam and our previous part file. Since I don't currently have any bore or boss geometry, we'll start by sketching up a simple 1-inch diameter arc in our graphics window by using the circle center point command and place on the origin. We can then apply this and now create a 1.5-inch diameter arc, also placing it on the origin. Remember, if your crosshairs are not turned on, you can simply press your F9 key or click on the View Show Axis button. Because the arc is located on my working plane's origin, the diameter inside and outside datum cycles are perfect for setting a work offset, as they will probe each quadrant point, naturally finding the center and setting it as my 0 position. Although a solid model is not required in order to utilize CIMCO probing, we are able to select certain geometry off of them. So let's create one in order to show how to do this, along with get a better visual of the part. I will first click on the solids extrude icon and chain on both the arcs that I just sketched. We can then green check out of the chaining dialog box and click on the option of Add Boss. We can then verify the direction that we are extruding, and in our example, we will want to go in a Z-negative direction, so can flip the arrows as needed and set our distance to 1/2 inch. Now that we have all of the necessary geometry to probe both a boss and bore feature, let's click on the CIMCO cycle probing icon located on our CIMCO tab and go to the workpiece datum category. We are going to start with the diameter inside 4-point cycle. The workflow will be identical to our previous probing cycles, and because I already had selected a probe, we can then bypass this and enter an operation comment if you wish. If you do not already have a probe defined, please watch our tutorial video on how to define a probe. Next, we will click on the Cycle tab, followed by right-clicking in the Geometry section. You will notice that now, in this cycle, we have the option to select our geometry from arcs. This can either be wireframe and/or solid edges. Once we select on our 1-inch diameter arc, CIMCO probing is associated to that geometry, and we can start defining specifics to this probe path. Looking at our current settings, you'll notice that our x-axis, y-axis, and diameter were defined based on my selected geometry. We can then define the specific measuring height, safety distance, clearance height, and a few others for this particular path as needed. You can define the measuring height by simply typing in a number, using your right mouse button click menu, and access the option of Z-coordinate of a point, or use the center mouse wheel in order to scroll up or down, as this will increase or decrease the value. I will set mine to a negative 0.25. You will notice that this time the safety distance is an optional parameter. This can be used if there was an obstruction that would prevent the probe from simply moving straight across at its measuring depth in order to probe other points. If we enable this and set it to 0.125, we will now see that the probe positions and retracts an 1/8 inch from the wall and returns to the clearance site at which it will reposition to the other locations. In our example, I will disable this option and then set my clearance height, which is the height that the probe will rapid to, from, and in between cycles. Now that we have the basic values input, you can see a visual of the probe path on your screen and can adjust any of the values in order to get a live updated feedback. We can then set the over travel distance if you wish, as this will allow the probe to travel past the expected coordinates without alarming out, along with the work offset number that we are currently using and wish to update. This example, we will use G154P10. Within the cycle, you have an option to print data, which would deprint out a probing report based on your machine's I/O channel and parameters. We can also shift the work offsets by a certain value in either the X or Y axis by using the datum set point options. You will also notice a suppress probe on and off and a measurement result tick box. The suppress probe on/off will keep the probe turned on while it's probing in between cycles and can be set per operation. Measurement result will allow you to copy the probe's results into specific variables of your CNC control so they can be referenced later. This is important because the standard variables that Renishaw writes into are constantly being overwritten per probing cycle. The feature-to-feature option will be covered in its own tutorial. Once you check out of the cycle, you can simulate it within Backplot, Verify, or Machine Simulation and see how it looks. You'll notice that the cycle will probe each quadrant point of the arc, finding its center location and setting it as my new origin. Now that we have seen how to probe a bore on your part and set it as a 0 point, let's switch gears and show an example in order to pick up off of a boss feature. We will begin by clicking on the CIMCO cycle probing icon, workpiece datum, diameter outside 4 points. We will enter an operation comment, click on our cycle tab, and then right-click in the geometry section. Similar to diameter inside, the diameter outside will allow for the same geometry selection of arcs. Again, arcs will allow you to select on the wireframe and/or solid edges. Once we select on our 1.5-inch diameter arc, CIMCO probing is associated to that geometry and we can start defining specifics to this probe path. Again, you will notice that the x-axis, y-axis, and diameter fields are all defined based on my selected geometry. Let's again define our measuring height to a minus 0.250, our safety distance to a positive 0.250, and our clearance height to 1 inch. We can then enable our over travel distance and set it to a 0.125. We should now see a visual path on our part and can adjust any of the settings if needed before closing out. The last thing I will set is our current work offset number to be updated on the machine, which will be G154P10 in my example. Once we click OK and check out, you can again simulate it within Backplot, Verify, or Machine Simulation and see how it looks. You'll notice that this time it will probe each quadrant point, but on the outside of the arc for a boss. Let's post it out and see how the code looks along with how it would run on the machine. Looking at the Renishaw Inspection Plus code for our Haas mill, you'll notice that the program is nice and short and makes the code very easy to read. As we go through, you will find your probe on and off commands, the probe's protected safety moves in order to approach and retract from the part safely, along with the diameter inside 4-point cycle. Next will be the Q value, which defines the over traveled distance, along with the S number, which will be the work offset number that we are updating on the machine. We will then see the actual and deviation results, which are being copied into my user-defined variable numbers so I can reference them or display on my control. We will then repeat the same process for the boss cycle, but notice that this time, because I am using my safety distance, we will then define the height at which we wish to measure, keeping in mind that we are currently compensating for the probe radius, along with our R value, which defines our standoff distance. All of this information can be referenced in the Renishaw Inspection Plus manual. We hope that you have found this video beneficial. For further information, questions, or to request a free 30-day trial of CIMCO probing, please contact CIMCO or your local reseller today or visit our website of probing.com. Thanks for watching.